seeking the truth never gets old. Introducing June's Journey, the free-to-play mobile game that will immerse you in a thrilling murder mystery. Join June Parker as she uncovers hidden objects and clues to solve her sister's death in a beautifully illustrated world set in the Roaring '20s. With new chapters added every week, the excitement never ends. Download June's Journey now on your Android or iOS device, or play on PC through Facebook Games.
This is Find Your Dream Job, the podcast that helps you get hired, have the career you want, and make a difference in life. I'm your host, Mac Pritchard. I'm also the founder of Mac's List. It's a job board in the Pacific Northwest that helps you find a fulfilling career. Every Wednesday, I talk to a different expert about the tools you need to get the work you want. Every hiring manager you meet will want to know why you're changing jobs. Your response, especially if you were fired or laid off, can make a huge difference in getting an offer. Heather Joy is here to talk about how to explain why you left your last job. She's the founder and owner of Right Path Resumes and Career Coaching. Heather's company specializes in career coaching with a focus on interviews, resumes, and LinkedIn profiles. She joins us from Forest Grove, Oregon. Well, let's jump right into it, Heather. Why do interviewers care at all about why you left your last job?
That's a good question. Well, of course, they may be concerned about if you were a good resource, if you had a negative history, if there's something wrong with your background, if you switched jobs pretty frequently, they're going to notice that on your resume. But some interviewers will still be willing to interview you to find out why that was and still be willing to hire you. But their biggest concerns are just if you've been difficult to work with, if there's any red flags for them.
You work with a lot of candidates. What mistakes do you see applicants make when they answer this question?
Probably the biggest mistake is actually twofold. One, they get very nervous and not confident about answering the question when most of the time it's a very logical reason. A typical reason right now is layoffs. And the interviewers are actually expecting to hear that one the most at this point. But another mistake they make is being overly honest. You have to remember that in the interview, they don't really care about you. They care about what you can do for them. And no matter how nice the interviewer is, they are looking for a reason not to hire you as much as they are to hire you. They're not your friend. And so you want to keep your answer honest but relevant. There's a lot of details they might not need to know that have nothing to do with whether you're going to do a good job for them or not.
Now, thinking about that answer, you've got a formula that you share with your clients. It has 3 parts that you recommend following for how to answer the question, why are you changing? Why have you left your last job? And the 3 parts are an introduction, an explanation of why you left, and a question about the interviewer's challenges. Can you walk us through those 3 parts and break that down?
Yes, absolutely. When you're answering this question, it's important to understand you want to keep them moving. You don't want the interviewer to rest in the fact that you were laid off or fired or that you are leaving your job. That's not the important piece. The important thing is that you are going to do a great job for them and that you care about their problem and you can help them. And so with these different parts of why are you looking for a new position, sometimes it's asked, why did you leave your previous position or why are you leaving? Those all have the same answer. So what I like to do is to walk you through what that sounds like, show you what it sounds like, and then tell you what each piece will do for you from the interviewer's perspective. So what I would say if I was in an interview is I'd have to first tell them the why. The why is the only piece really that you need to adjust very much. So some of the different reasons could be you went through a layoff, maybe you took your role as far as it could go. there's no further growth you can realize at that organization, or you're not happy there, but we want to keep it positive. So maybe you've taken your role as far as it could go. Maybe you took time off to care for a very ill family member. You could be the ill family member. They don't need to know that. They don't need to know the details. And it's to your detriment if you talk about that too much. So what it would sound like is, I've really loved working for my current organization, and I've had several opportunities to make a positive impact. I'm happy to walk you through some of those accomplishments highlighted here on my resume. However, as you know, with the COVID environment, many organizations across the US, if not the world, have gone through major reorganizations. That happened to my company as well. So now I'm looking for a new long-term growth opportunity with an organization like yours in a role just like this. In fact, I'm interviewing for roles just like this over the next few months. Tell me more about some of the challenges you'd like my help with. So, what that does for you is, first of all, you're telling them there's nothing shady to see here. There's no drama. It's a totally normal reason, layoffs, that I've left my job or you've left your job. The second part is you're telling them you know exactly what you want. You're not applying for anything and everything. You're very specific about the types of roles and organizations that you're interested in working for. And that tells them that there's longevity with you, that you're unlikely to change your mind, and they're more willing to make an investment with you if you are willing to dedicate your time to them. You're also creating a subtle sense of urgency by saying, in fact, I'm interviewing for roles just like this over the next few months. So that tells them that other people are interested in hiring you, and that you have other options. You're making your decision very carefully and taking it seriously. Time is of the essence, and you're going to be making a decision soon. Finally, you're flipping it back around onto them with another strategic question while taking ownership of that position in advance.
So there are three parts. Part one, you're explaining what you did. Part two, you're explaining why you left and what you're looking for. And in part three, you're learning more about that employer and the needs of that company. How does following this formula help you in an interview?
It really helps because it gives you that confidence first, and knowing that you are keeping them moving. You're actually steering the conversation in the interview by keeping them moving through the parts that are not as important, the fact that you're leaving your job, to the part that is important, which is, what are their professional pain points? What are their professional needs that they need someone to fill for them? And that helps you to control the conversation. It's very empowering. You actually want them to do most of the talking, and you don't need to carry the interviewee does not need to carry the conversation. You actually want the interviewer to do most of the talking, because you have to identify red flags. You want to see what their needs are and be truly focused on them, and that will increase their connection to you and the willingness to engage, because now at the very end, you're getting them to talk about those pain points. And whenever someone's listening to you, when you have a pain point, that increases your connection to them.
What's the biggest challenge you find when you coach people about how to use this formula? Heather, what stops them from doing it?
One of the biggest ones more recently that I've realized is sometimes it's different when you're talking to a recruiter or an HR manager. With the question, tell me more about some of the challenges you'd like my help with. And with that whole answer, you're actually answering at least four different questions in one, which is great. But one of the challenges is that if you ask them, tell me more about some of the challenges you'd like my help with, if it's an HR person or a recruiter, they might not know because they don't actually work in that department or understand that work. And so we can change that question at the end to, tell me more about this position. I'm really excited to learn more. And that can be very helpful with the recruiter situation.
Terrific. I want to take a break. And when we come back, I want to walk through how to apply this formula to the 4 different scenarios that are most likely happening when someone leaves their job. So stay with us. When we return, Heather Joy will continue to share her advice on how to explain why you left your last job. What's the best way to learn a language? Immersion. Live where the language is spoken and use it every day. I know this from firsthand experience. When I was in college, I spent a semester in Mexico City. I lived in a boarding house where no one spoke English, and my Spanish got really good. But if you can't go abroad this year, you can still learn a language, and that's with Babbel. I use Babbel's courses to maintain and improve my Spanish, and I see the benefits every day. I'm not surprised. One study found that using Babbel for 15 hours is equivalent to a full semester at college. And all of Babbel's 14 award-winning language courses are backed by a 20-day money-back guarantee. Get up to 60% off at babbel.com/dreamjob. That's spelled BABBEL.com/dreamjob. Rules and restrictions may apply.
Ryan Reynolds here from Mint Mobile. With the price of just about everything going up during inflation, we thought we'd bring our prices down. So to help us, we brought in a reverse auctioneer, which is apparently a thing.
Mint Mobile Unlimited Premium Wireless. How to get 30, 30, bit to get 30, bit to get 20, 20, 20, bit to get 20, 20, bit to get 15, 15, 15, 15, just $15 a month? Sold!
Give it a try at mintmobile.com/switch.
$45 upfront payment equivalent to $15 per month. New customers on first 3-month plan only. Taxes and fees extra. Speed slower above 40 gigabytes. See detail.
We're back in the Max List studio. I'm talking with Heather Joy. She's the founder and owner of Right Path Resumes and Career Coaching. Heather's company specializes in career coaching with a focus on interviews, resumes, and LinkedIn profiles. She joins us from Forest Grove, Oregon. Now, Heather, before the break, we were talking about how to explain why you left your last job. And you took us through the 3-part formula that you share with your clients for how to answer this question. And as you mentioned in the first segment, there are a number of common scenarios for why people leave a position. And the top 4 are: you were laid off, you were fired, you took medical or family leave, or you wanted a position with new responsibilities. You'd done everything you could accomplish in your previous position. So I want to talk about when you get this question, how much should you share, particularly if you've been laid off or fired and you're worried about that an employer might want to dig into that. What do you recommend to your clients, Heather?
That's a really good question. And yes, absolutely. One of the things that causes a lot of anxiety for interviewees. So first of all, your mindset needs to be in the right place. There isn't anything that you're talking about that has anything to do with you doing a bad job. We want to keep this very positive, and they are going to want to know the reason. Now, with the strategy that I shared with you earlier, ideally, that's going to be good enough, and they're going to keep moving. We're keeping them moving along, and we're getting them to talk. However, there are going to be some of those interviewers who want to dig in a little bit more on the why. So if it's a family leave, you don't want to tell them the specific reasons. And the why behind that is because, let's say it's kids. You took time off because you had a baby. Well, now they're going to be thinking about other time you're going to want off for that. And if that's going to be more complicated, they're not going to tell you that because that could be a potential lawsuit. But you don't want to volunteer any of that information. Let's say you or your family member had cancer. Well, now they may be thinking about the 5-year life expectancy and all the treatments and other things you might need time off for in the future. So with that answer, you would just want to say, and hopefully this would be enough for them. I took time off to care for a very, very ill family member. That's all now resolved. And now I'm looking for a new long-term growth opportunity, etc. If they are asking about maybe you were fired, that is still a reorganization. So you can say your company reorganized, even if they only reorganized one person, it is still a reorganization. And just by using those words yourself or that phrasing, that gives you more confidence too. You're still telling the truth, but you're not giving them all the details that they don't need, and it doesn't really matter. And we're keeping them moving along again to what their professional or business pain points are. Now, if you have a really good formula down and you understand the reason why it works and why it is best for the interviewer, because we want to help them too, then that gives you more confidence in being able to push back and keep them moving. Now, when I say push back, you might get that interviewer who's really digging deep, like that's not good enough for them and they want more information. That's a red flag. And I believe that the work meant for you will come to you, and you want to pay attention to those red flags. Ignoring red flags is not a superpower, which I have learned through my experience. And so if someone in the interview is asking you more detailed questions, well, why were you laid off? Or, what happened with your reorganization? I want more details, and they're really digging. You can say, well, like I said, I had several opportunities to make a positive impact. This is a reorganization that a lot of companies are going through. What specifically is your concern about that? Or you could say try to redirect them and say something like, would you like me to tell you about some of my top accomplishments that I achieved in this organization, how I improved business or increased business, etc. But again, we want to try to keep them moving. If they won't let it go, that is a red flag, and that might not be the right place for you.
Okay, so a couple of points I'm gathering from that. It's very useful. Is be honest, but you don't overshare. Am I hearing that right?
Yes, they are not your friend.
Okay, so give a direct and simple explanation, and again, be honest. Don't overshare. And tell me more about why it's a red flag if an employer presses you on say a layoff or is talking about a dismissal. Why should a candidate be concerned about that?
Well, there's a couple of different reasons. One of them could be, this is a small world, and they might know someone at the company that you used to work for, and then that might get them to go fishing for additional information that you don't want them to. It could be that they've had a bad experience, that they've had high turnover, people aren't working out, but that also says something about the company if they have high turnover in that role. And so whenever you can flip it back onto them with another strategic question, that's going to help you yourself dig into why are they doing that. So you could say things like, tell me about some of your concerns with this. Why is this position open? How did this position become available? And that might get them to confess essentially what's really going on. And when that happens, with any question that you ask them when they're answering them, if they are being negative or derogatory about people or the company or throwing people under the bus and blaming, that tells you that they'll be willing to do that to you as well and may be hard to please or unreasonable. And so if they're not willing to move along and focus on the professional reasons why you're there, then that tells you that might be more of a challenging work environment that you don't want.
So interview the employer just as much as they're interviewing you. When you're getting ready for these conversations, what kind of practice do you recommend for answering that question, explaining why you left your last job? What have you seen be effective in helping people apply the formula you laid out in the first segment?
The first thing I start with when I'm coaching anyone is actually mindset. So the two main reasons people get nervous in an interview that I have found are, one, they put the interviewer on a pedestal and automatically think, well, they're better than I am, either because they have the job or their title or both. And the second reason is because they overanalyze what the negative or ambiguous things about themselves or the situation. So, why did I wear this outfit, or what am I going to wear? I hope they don't ask me this question. Why did I say that? Am I going to get this job? And that is not being others focused. We're being self-focused when we think that way. So what you need to be is others focused. And in preparing for the interview, it really helps if you instead take the interviewer off the pedestal and think of them as if they are a potential client with a challenge and you have or are the solution. If you weren't, you wouldn't be there. They've already decided more than 50% that you are a good fit for this role. And now they're deciding if you're going to get along, if you really do know what you're talking about, etc. And with that interviewer in front of you, you can think of them as potential client with a challenge. Another way to visualize this is to imagine that they are a tourist. You're walking down the street of your hometown and a tourist comes up to you and asks you for directions. Your mind and body become completely engaged in helping them get what they need or where they need to go. You're not thinking about yourself in that moment. So if you can think of them in that way in the interview, this is another internal or external client that comes up to you and asks for professional advice to solve problems every day in your job. This interviewer is the same person. They are also a potential client or a tourist and they need your help. Now you are on equal footing and you're completely engaged in helping them get what they need and being focused on what those needs are.
Well, it's been a terrific conversation. Heather, now tell us, what's next for you?
I am starting now in doing workshops for colleges, universities, trade schools on modern resume writing and LinkedIn strategy that incorporates modern technology such as applicant tracking systems in creating the document and approaching LinkedIn for networking and all of that. And I really enjoy doing those group sessions. I love the individual sessions I do as well, but I'm excited to be expanding in that direction.
Well, terrific. I know listeners can learn more about you by connecting with you on LinkedIn. And when they do reach out to you, please mention that you heard Heather on Find Your Dream Job. Now, Heather, given all the great advice you shared today, what's the one thing you want a listener to remember about how to explain why you left your last job?
It's really important to remember that if you have this strategy down, that you're going to be more confident in how you approach that. So when you prepare for interviewing in general, of course, go over typical questions you think they'll ask you. But embrace the fact that there's nothing wrong with your background, that you have a good reason for leaving, or it just happened because it's a layoff, and there's nothing fishy about that. And so if you embrace that with confidence and you embrace challenges instead of running away from it, and you bring that feeling to the interview, then the interviewer will embrace that too, and they will have confidence in you.
Next week, our guest will be Kareem Rogers. He's a recruiter, a career coach, and the owner of the HR Depot. Kareem's company improves the quality of life of job seekers through resume and coaching services. You will do many job searches in your career, and there will be times when you face more competition for fewer positions. When this happens, you need to use strategies that give you an edge over your competitors. Join us next Wednesday when Kareem Rogers and I talk about 4 steps to stand out in a tough job market. Until next time, thanks for letting us help you find your dream job. This show is produced by Max List. Susan Thornton-Hoff schedules our guests and writes our newsletter. Lisa Kislenberry Anderson manages our social media. Our sound engineer and editor is Matt Fiorillo. Dawn Mole creates our transcripts, and our music is by Freddie Trujillo. This is Mac Pritchard. See you next week.